Hey everybody, we're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. As you know, he's Jason, I'm Chucky, and before we dive into this week's football slate, and it's a big one, we're going to talk about F1, Formula One in Vegas. I mean, it's unbelievable. This town has transformed into Racing Central, Jay. Similar to when we first got NASCAR, it was just crazy with NASCAR fans. It became the highest wagering event on the NASCAR circuit. I think we're going to see the same thing happen with F1, and that's why there is an F1 packet. You don't have to come in to get it. Just check out the app. All the different wagers from the race itself to practice to qualifying are on the app. It's going to be exciting. It's a late start, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And there's so many ways, different ways, I should say, to bet the event if you want to bet other than who's going to win the race.
Yeah, and it's not only betting on the Saturday evening race itself. The practicing and qualifying begins Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all throughout those 3 days, there's wagering on the F1 stuff, qualifying times, podiums, top 10 finishes. The guys really exploded the menu out, and what an incredible transition.
Right.
You know, we've been somewhat talking about what's gone on in the Strip over the last month and a half, and the amazing transformation in front of the Bellagio, in front of Paris, all the way down in front of Caesars. But to actually go and look at what the track looks like today, especially at night when you see the lights down there on the Las Vegas Strip, wondering how these guys were going to be racing from 10 p.m. to after midnight on the Las Vegas Strip.
It is so illuminated with the lights that it almost looks like it's daytime. And if you have an extra 2.5 hours and you want to go take a ride down the track tonight, feel free, but that's about how long it takes.
But yeah, an incredible transformation, and I think, I don't know that I watch a lot of Formula One, but I'm really looking forward to, staying up kind of 10 o'clock, watching the beginning of the race, just taking in the sights and sounds here in our own backyard. And again, we've expanded that wagering menu, lots of stuff to look at. So again, if you're going to tune in, check out the race, why not put a couple bucks on something and have something to cheer for?
Yeah, I think it really is fun. When you talk about the success of the Knights, the Raiders, the Aces, UNLV football right now, and then having an event like this, which is an international spectacle. And we've seen other U.S. races, the race in Miami, the race in Texas, really kind of capture the sport and really bring it to America and educate our fans as well. And having something that goes right down the strip like this with, as you mentioned, the backdrop of the lights and the hotels, it is going to be crazy fun and really speaks volumes about Vegas now being Sports Central. And there's a big football game in February too, so it is like, if you're a sports fan, this is the place to be. All right, we're going to dive into a little football right now. Start with college football this week. All right, so let's see here. First game I think that we can talk about, Jay, is Utah and Arizona. 16th ranked Utah at Arizona. Both teams are 7-3. Arizona is -1, total 45. First, isn't the Pac-12 fun? I mean, there's so many really good teams in the Pac-12 right now, and they score. We look at some of the other conferences, and we kind of make fun of the Big Ten with some of the totals we see, but the Pac-12 is exciting. There's a lot of scoring, a lot of good quarterbacks. One of these teams might be able to sneak into the playoff, depending on how everything shakes out. But this game here is really, I think, one of the more intriguing matchups of the week.
Yeah, and kind of talking about your Pac-12 conference and the excitement, and obviously the Pac-12 will be going away, so it's great to see the competitiveness within the Pac-12, these teams being in the rankings, and you talk about that scoring that's in the Pac-12, and they're going to be combining with the Big Ten, where we see really no scoring. So two conferences that are combining that have a completely different look and feel of the Pac-12 with the high-powered offenses, not a lot of defense, and the Big Ten with a lot of defense and not a lot of offense. So it's going to be interesting to see those mergers as we go next year, and it should provide some for some interesting handicapping as we see those teams play each other. And before we get into Arizona, Utah, just another mention. I've been talking about it every single week, the amount of big underdogs that are winning outright on the money line, essentially talking about teams that are plus $2 or more, 7-point touchdown underdogs or more that are winning outright. And we saw 7 more of them last week, including Hawaii, who was a 20-point underdog. Arizona State was a 17-point underdog. So again, each and every week, we had 9 the week before, 7 last week. So again, take a look at those big dogs, and don't be afraid to take them on the money line. We look at Arizona and Utah. Obviously, Arizona's kind of caught fire. They've won 4 games in a row here, going for their 5th win in a row. It'd be the first time they've done that since 2014. They squeaked by Colorado last week, didn't really play well in the first half. Colorado looked like the better team, and then really had a good game in the second second half, were able to win that by a field goal. They're a very, very small favorite, a 1-point favorite over Utah, and we've seen this Utah team has kind of been up and down, but the one thing Utah does is they respond well. Twice so far this year, they lost at Oregon State, come back and win. That was against Cal, had a blowout win against Cal. Lose against Oregon at home, come back the next week and blow out ASU. Now they lose to Washington, and this is the rebound game. So they've been able to bounce back. Each one of those bounce back games has been at home. This one is on the road at Arizona. That's why we see it such a tight number. Two teams that desperately need these wins.
I think here's some interesting betting trends for this game too, Jay. Utah is 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games when playing Arizona. They're 5-1 against the number in their last 6 games when playing Arizona. Yet Arizona, as you mentioned, kind of been on a little bit of a roll, is 5-0 against the number in their last 5 home games, and the total has gone under in all 5 of those last 5 home games for Arizona. So a couple of interesting trends there that you can kind of make a case for both teams, but maybe based on this, the game stays under a bit.
Yeah, and Arizona wasn't expected to be in this situation. They were expected to be a bottom half of the Pac-12, an under 500 team. So they're playing a little bit over their heads, and obviously them being at home, going for their 5th win, the fact that they're only a 1-point favorite here tells you how close these two teams really are.
It's a really interesting Pac-12 matchup. Another game we're going to look at now is number 1, Georgia against number 21, Tennessee. Georgia's 10-0, Tennessee 7-3. Georgia 10.5-point favorite. Total is 58.5. What do you think about this matchup?
Well, the big thing for Tennessee is they're 5-0 at home. They've taken care of the home field advantage. They've done what they're supposed to do at home, haven't played the tough teams at home, and they have 3 losses all on the road, at Bama, at Florida, and at Missouri.
Didn't play well against Missouri.
And got blown out by Missouri in that last game. On the flip side for me, looking at this game from a Georgia standpoint, is Georgia's only played two true road games. They won against Florida in the neutral site game in the largest cocktail party, but they played 2 true road games. They went to Vanderbilt and won 37-20, and they went to Auburn and they won 27-20. So they're 0-2 against the spread on the road. This is their toughest road battle yet, and they're a 10.5-point favorite. So this is my, again, look to those underdogs. Again, number 1 team in the country. Tough to kind of see the money line coming through here, but I think plus the 10.5 points on Tennessee with basically their Super Bowl of Georgia coming into a 5-0 where I'm at home. This is Tennessee's big spot, and it might have been even a look ahead last week of they looked past Missouri because they knew that they had this one on their schedule, and this is one they really wanted to come and play.
Based on what you said with Tennessee and how successful they've been at home, kind of the interesting betting trends would be is that Tennessee is 5-0 straight up in their last 5 home games, but more importantly, they are 9-1 against the number in their last 10 home games. So that kind of speaks that maybe as this number continues to tick up a bit, some value on the ball.
Their defense has really been a problem of late, and I think, again, maybe even something to look at here would be to potentially take Tennessee in the first half, that they play with this, exuberance and excitement coming out of the gate, and then you just see kind of Georgia wear them down, maybe able to dominate them late. Maybe Tennessee hangs on late, but maybe Tennessee in the first half would be a play here.
So we're going to jump down to another Pac-12 matchup, and that's number 5 Washington and number 10 Oregon State. Washington 10-0, Oregon State 8-2. Oregon State here is a very small home favorite of 1.5 and total of 64. You've got Washington that's 10-0, looking for a spot in the playoff, yet they're a dog here against the Beavers.
Yeah, massive national championship implications for the Pac-12 here. Obviously, these are the 3 teams out of the Pac-12 that still have a chance to represent the Pac-12 in a national championship game. Washington with a win here really solidifies their position. Oregon State wins here. They get to play Oregon next week. So despite the 2 losses, they could be a Pac-12 representative and a Pac-12 champion. Oregon State has been, and we'll talk, Washington opened the favorite in this game, 10-0, number 5 in the country.
Didn't stay there long,
though. They opened a small favorite in this game. This game has now flipped to Oregon State being a 1.5-point favorite, and they're 16-1 at home since 2001, kind of in the recent Corvallis, change of who the Oregon State Beavers are. Damian Martinez last week had 4 first-half rushing touchdowns against Stanford. We know DJ Ukulele, a former transfer from Clemson, transferred to Oregon State this year. He's been absolutely fantastic for them, and they're going to have to find a way to stop this Washington offense. Penix has been fantastic. Dylan Johnson's been running the football. I think they're 5th in the nation in scoring. They're 6th in the nation in total offense, but this is a very, very difficult place to play, and probably the biggest game. They won't come out and say it at Oregon State, but probably the biggest game in their history of their football program this week at home to be able to knock off this
rivalries against Oregon. When Oregon has been relevant over the last decade, have really been big, but I think none gets bigger than this right now. Here's a couple of interesting betting trends for you as well. Washington 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games. 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games on the road. Oregon State 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games at home. And as you mentioned, 12-1 against the number in their last 13 home games. Yet they're playing this Washington team that's undefeated. It's flipped, and they're a small favorite right now.
This is the game I had circled to watch this week. Obviously, major implications as we talk about the college national championship.
So the next game is one of the games I have circled to watch too, and it happens to be Air Force and Rebel football. I mean, unbelievable. We went to the game Friday night against Wyoming. Huge contingent of Cowboy fans there. But this Rebel team just looks different than I can remember. Talking about a Rebel football team that controls their own destiny, that's relevant. When was the last time we did that? I can't even remember. But they're really good. They're fast. They're fun to watch. And they've got an opportunity now, because of Air Force's struggles the last 2 weeks, to host the Mountain West Championship game here. So interesting matchup. Game opened up 3.5, has come down to 3. Looks like it might even go a little bit lower right now, but a tough place to go play. It's going to be a little chillier than what the Rebels are used to, but right now Air Force is a 3-point favorite.
Not getting to play in the comfy
Allegiant,
indoor of Allegiant Stadium, traveling up to Colorado, a tough place to play, and obviously they're only a 3-point dog, so the fact that they've been playing so well, the offense looks great. They got out to the early 21-0 lead against Wyoming, and then kind of let Wyoming get back into that game, and then kind of refound it again and kind of dominated from there on out. And that's UNLV's MO. You talked about it. They're fast. Really like what the offensive coordinator has done. Odom's
very
been
creative
fantastic.
on offense.
They're quick on defense. And the fact that they're only a 3-point dog traveling to Air Force kind of tells you the struggles that Air Force has had. And I really don't know what's going on with university football at Air Force, but when you lose as a 20-point favorite to Army, and then the next week as a 20-point favorite, you travel on the road and you lose to Hawaii, when you were sitting at 8-0 and starting to creep up into a top 25 conversation, and you lose those 2 type of games, something's going on there. So the fact that those games were a neutral site game and then at Hawaii, and they get to come home, I bet you this is a really, really big spot for Air Force to try and regain this momentum, regain their season, and hold on to that Mountain West Conference title.
I think it's a really big game for UNLV, too, because when you think about UNLV, we know they lost at Michigan earlier in the season, had that opportunity against Fresno, drop pass late in that game, maybe they win that game. But when's the last time they've been so relevant in football? Even the crowd there was really energized. There was a lot of people there. It was a fun atmosphere. We've gone to games over the last couple of years, and it was go to have fun, not necessarily watch the game. Here we're there to watch the game. And I think a win here and an opportunity in Odom's first year to host the Mountain West Championship game really is kind of a statement-type game for UNLV football as well.
It's incredible what they've done, and now you start to look at what they're doing and talk about a Mountain West title, and also what kind of bowl game they can go to, because they keep going up and climbing that ladder of potential bowl games.
That would be fun,
big opponents.
We've already looked at some of those, and depending on where it all shakes out, some really interesting matchups for UNLV. Really quick, some interesting betting trends for this game. UNLV 5-0 against the number in their last 5 road games. UNLV is 9-1 against the number in their last 10 games. Air Force 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games when playing UNLV. Air Force is 7-1 straight up in their last 8 games when playing at home against UNLV. So a couple of interesting betting trends there as well.
Yeah, and I think all that stuff is old UNLV teams, because obviously this UNLV team is nothing like anything we've seen in the last decade.
So it's going to be fun. It's a really interesting college slate this week. Don't forget about F1 as well. Really exciting weekend with what's going on in the world of sports right now. We're going to come back and we're going to dive into pro football. So we'll be right back on the Sports Betting Podcast, Bookends.
Guess what? It's football season, baby. And you know what that means. It's time to bet your buns off. And when it comes to sports betting, you better bet with the STN Sports app. I'm talking football. All the fights. Men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer ball. We've got it all. And with our 14 convenient sign-up locations around town, it's no wonder they call me the Queen of Convenience. Because when I bet with STN, I feel like royalty. So what in the heck are you waiting for? Download the STN Sports app today and trust the local favorite.
Hey everybody, we're back at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast. Bookends powered by STN Sports. Talk a little pro football. Week 11. It's hard to believe it's week 11 already. Football season just seems to fly by. Last Thursday night we had Panthers-Bears, which we didn't spend too much time. But this Thursday night, AFC North battle between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Both teams surprisingly come off a loss last week, and both teams were touchdown favorites basically. The Bengals lose to the Texans, the Ravens lose to the Browns. This is a huge game for these two teams. I think it's the toughest division in football right now, Jay. You've got all four teams in the North that are above 500. I think it's a much bigger game, though, for the Bengals. A Bengal loss here, and they're 5-5. They're kind of out of the playoff picture right now. This is a team that we both think can win the Super Bowl. I think it's a much bigger game to them. Number opened up 3.5, has ticked up to 4 right now. I think it's, a much bigger game for the Bengals. Ravens are 4, and I think 46 as we speak.
Yeah, and obviously both teams coming off the loss is kind of shocking in the fact that Baltimore looked to have the game in hand against Cleveland. Started off early with the big interception return for a touchdown, and then you just watch this Browns team hang around, turn the big interception for themselves with Newsome be able to score, and then come back and win that game. And the same thing with the Bengals, constantly just a struggle. Watch the Texans kind of dominate them. Bengals fought their way back, and then watched Houston win it.
They should have won, though. Boyd dropped that pass in the end zone since he would have won that game and come all the way back.
But the fact that they're both coming off the loss, playing now on the short week, and you said it, this is a monster game in the division. Although the Browns making the announcement today that Deshaun Watson is out for the season with shoulder surgery, so they're going to have to kind of go to Walker or Dorian Thompson. So maybe you have to look at the future of the Browns is not as bright as what it could be with these other two teams. But again, a great matchup here. Cincinnati has done a really good job. You go look back at the last 5 to 6 meetings against the Ravens. The Bengals have had a lot of fun throwing the football. Joe Burrow has put up some absolute monster numbers. Joe Burrow and Chase and Higgins and Boyd have put up some monster numbers late in games, looking at fourth quarters where they put up kind of 2 touchdowns in games
Burrow's
that were
biggest games
already out of hand.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a chip on his shoulder for the Ravens here in kind of returning the favor that the Bengals have kind of really rubbed it in on them a couple times in the last couple years, and I guarantee the Ravens are remembering that. But these are two teams that are trying to get right here, and we've talked about it for several weeks that the Ravens look like a Super Bowl team. That's a Super Bowl defense. But that Lamar Jackson and the offense really haven't gotten it going, especially in the passing game. Beckham finally had a big touchdown pass last week. Haven't gotten things going to Mark Andrews. And we've seen the young rookie running back, Mitchell, have some big runs, 30-yard plus touchdown runs in several back-to-back games here. So if Baltimore can control the clock, control the ground, long drives, keep that Bengal offense off the field. And obviously for the Bengals, no T. Higgins maybe was the reason why they didn't do all that well against the Texans pass defense that is usually pretty good to go up against. But he's got to be able to find Chase early and often this game. He can't go to him late. It's got to be something consistent early in the game.
And they'll be missing Hendricks on defense too. I think it's actually flipped for Cincinnati. I think they look like a playoff team on offense, and they have the struggles on defense, especially without Hendrickson now.
Well, we talked about that early in the season, going back to the season. They lost a couple of defensive backs. They lost a linebacker before the season started, and that was going to be their trouble on the backside on the defensive end. But with Joe Burrow and Chase and Mixon, they should be able to outscore opponents. And then they had some offensive line troubles. Burrow wasn't able to stay vertical, constantly under so much pressure, not able to get those passes off. When he was protected, they had a lot of success and won a bunch of games in a row, including winning at San Francisco. So we know this team has the potential to go on the road and win a big game because of that offense. But that defense is going to have to stand up this week and control Lamar Jackson.
The betting trends, and as you kind of talked about with the success that Cincinnati's had, Cincy is 5-1 against the number their last 6 trips to Baltimore, and their last 5 trips to Baltimore, all 5 games have gone over. So we'll see what happens in this game. Another game we're going to look at now is the Steelers-Browns, another AFC North battle. And as Jay mentioned, the big news came out this morning that no Deshaun Watson, P.J. Walker will fill in there. But really, it hasn't been about the Browns' offense. It's been more about the Browns' defense. We both think they have one of the best defensive units in the league. They showed that last week against Baltimore, really coming back late, standing up, making some big defensive plays. Number, of course, has plummeted without Watson from 4 to about 1.5. Big game for both these teams. Steelers somehow are 6-3 very quietly. They continue to win ugly. They're making a switch at running back. It's going to be Jalen Warren now as their starting back. They might have Freiermuth back at tight end. They seem to be getting a little bit healthier. Kenny Pickett hasn't been great, but Tomlin does a great job with whatever his team has. They're winning ugly. They're winning AFC North, and they can go to 7-3 with a win here against the backup quarterback.
Yeah, and for me, this game is a tale of two halves, I guess we'll call it. Pittsburgh's struggle is on the offensive side of the football. They don't consistently move the football. You talked about the change to Jalen Warren. They haven't had a lot of success in the passing game, and that offense is going up against what I think is one of the best defenses that we've seen in a long time. And they struggled a little bit last week in Baltimore, but one thing about Cleveland is they have a big home field advantage. And when they play at home, that defense just takes it up a whole nother level, a whole nother notch. And I think that's what we're going to see this week. And I don't like...
Against their rivals.
I don't like the change of Watson to go to P.J. Walker. I think it is a downgrade. Although Watson hasn't been that fantastic, he still has the ability to make plays, and I think the confidence that it gives that Browns offense is just even more with him, the ability to find Cooper or find Moore or find Njoku. Walker's just got to do a good job of not turning the ball over this week. This week, that offense doesn't need to go win the game because the defense is going to win the game for them. They are going to stop this Steeler offense, and if the Browns can just muster a little bit of offense, I think we can see them win the game this week. And you can get in at kind of a cheap price because we talked about it's plummeting because of the Watson being out.
And when you said the offense can do enough to win, here's some of the interesting betting trends that really support that. The total has gone under in 6 of Pittsburgh's last 7 games, so not a lot of scoring. Pittsburgh, however, is 6-1 against the number in their last 7 games on the road. The total has gone under in 7 of Cleveland's last 8 games at home. Cleveland is 4-1 straight up in their last 5 games at home. So with the small number there, it really is kind of an interesting betting trend about keeping this game under.
Yeah, and I think that Cleveland team is sky high after going into Baltimore and winning last week. The week before was the shutout, I believe, of the Cardinals at 22-0 or 27-0, something like that. But again, I look for a big defensive effort out of the Browns this week.
All right, we're going to jump to an AFC matchup now. The Dolphins, who come off their bye week, against Las Vegas Raiders, who put back-to-back wins on the board against both New York teams. Looked really good against the Giants. Ugly, kind of mostly a field goal game. They did get 1 touchdown against the Jets, but you guys have done really well back-to-back weeks on the Raiders. Dolphins come out of their bye. We've seen this number already jump a point and a half. We know how good their offense is. We know how explosive they are. Raiders have to travel to the East time zone right now. O'Connell's a young quarterback. He's got Adams a little bit involved. Jacobs has been great the last 2 weeks, but can they do enough offensively to compete with this Dolphin team?
Well, we talked about getting to play against the Giants, at home against the Giants, and the Giants essentially make a lot of teams look really good with their struggles. And the Jets offense is becoming the same old story week after week after week in the fact that they can't move the football. So you faced Tommy DeVito and Zach Wilson the last 2 weeks of the Raiders, and now you get to go down to Miami and face Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill and Waddle, and it's possible they get a Chan back in the running back there. And so when you look at and ask yourselves, why are the Raiders a 12.5-point favorite this week after Antonio Pierce has led this team to 2 victories in his 2 games? You just have to look at who they've played and who they've beaten. And those New York teams aren't anywhere close to the quality of what they're going to see down in Miami, the speed that they're going to see down in Miami. O'Connell's done a decent job. Devontae Adams, you talked about Jacobs, but this is going from night and day of the quality opponent that you're going to see here in this Dolphins team.
And it's a rested Dolphin team who also has some separation now from the Bills. Saw the Bills lose on Monday Night Football to the Broncos. So it's just a chance for Miami to kind of reinforce where they're at in the AFC. Maybe a couple of interesting betting trends to look at here, too. Total has gone over in 5 of the Raiders' last 5 games when playing the Dolphins. Miami is 5-0 against the number in their last 5 games at home. So they really do score a lot of points.
Yeah, and I think that's why this number opened 11 is gone up to 12.5 with some even 13s available out there. So not much respect for the Raiders and then their 2 wins at home over both New York clubs.
So picked another game for us to look at quick in the NFC West matchup, Seahawks-Rams. Looks like Stafford will be back in this game. The numbers kind of flip back and forth, though. You had the Seahawks the favorite. It went to the Rams with the announcement of Stafford, and back to the Seahawks right now. Rams beat them week 1 in a little bit of a surprise game in Seattle. Seattle gets a chance now for some revenge in this one.
Yeah, Seattle had the bad loss going to Baltimore, came back this past week with a win over the Commanders in a game that was back and forth. Commanders were able to come back late and make that a ball game. Tough trip down to L.A. Again, never really a home field advantage going down there. But obviously the Rams have a lot of, we'll call it, confidence and success as they went up to Seattle.
More so for the Rams, though, than the Chargers.
Yeah. And the biggest thing for the Rams is obviously getting Stafford back this week. He's been out. It's kind of affected what Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua can do. Their running game has been kind of banged up. They've been banged up kind of all over the place, both on offense and defense. They're coming off their bye week, which is a kind of a really big deal for them to get healthy. And like I said before, I think the Rams have a lot of confidence in what they need to do to shut down this Seahawks team and how they can play the Seahawks and exploit the Seahawks' weakness. And Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua have been big tools to do that because one of the biggest weaknesses for that Seattle is their secondary. So a healthy Stafford, a healthy Kupp, and a Puka Nacua could be trouble for the Seahawks.
And we did see, as I mentioned, that number kind of ping-pong back and forth a bit. A couple of interesting betting trends. Total has gone under in 4 of Seattle's last 5 games when playing the Rams. Seattle is 6-2, straight up in their last 8 games. Rams are 5-0 against the number. Their last 5 games when playing Seattle, so a lot of success against the Seahawks. Rams are 9-2 against the number in their last 11 games when playing at home against Seattle. So they've really done well against them against the number so far. We're going to jump into the primetime games now. And really the Sunday night game now has shaped up to a really good game. I might not have said that a month ago, but it's the Broncos hosting the Vikings. Vikings are, surprisingly, the hottest team in the NFL. They've won 5 straight games. Dobbs has looked great in that offense. There's a good chance they're going to get Jefferson back this week. Denver has some big wins now. They've beaten Kansas City and Buffalo over the last 3 weeks in their 3-game winning streak. They've played really well. Russ has played good. Williams is running the ball. Defensively, they look better. So it's 2 teams that are really ascending upward right now. Number opened up 1.5. It's quickly gone to 2.5 in favor of Denver. But both these teams are playing really good football right now.
Yeah, Minnesota, despite all the Dobbs success coming in to replace Kirk Cousins, Minnesota's really done it on the defensive side of the football. They've been really good on defense, getting the turnovers, making the key plays. And again, Dobbs is kind of the excitement that he's brought to the team with Jefferson being out and them being able to have big games through Hawkinson and Addison and Dobbs running the football. Both of those games, again, he came in as a reliever in the win, and then last week, obviously, the big home win. This is going to be a much more difficult situation. You talked about it, traveling to Denver against this Denver defense that has just been rejuvenated. We're talking about this same Denver defense that allowed 70 points to the Dolphins earlier this year, and now we're talking about the same Denver defense.
They were dominant against Buffalo.
That beat the Chiefs and beat Buffalo, and they didn't beat the Chiefs or the Bills on the offensive side of the football.
Right.
Russell Wilson was okay. The running Williams has been okay. They've gotten big receptions from Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy in key moments, but I wouldn't say that the Denver Broncos offense is moving the football with any consistency. But this defense is turning the ball over. They did it against the Chiefs. They did it against the Bills.
Don't forget the Chiefs that week were the only offensive team that didn't score a touchdown, and that was against Denver, and Buffalo only scored 2 touchdowns.
And Dobbs has, we're 2 weeks of saying how great Dobbs has been, but 3 weeks and 4 weeks before that, we were watching him turn the football over every week with the Arizona Cardinals.
A much better situation now.
Different team, different coaching staff, all the different players. So a lot of stuff going on in this game. 2 teams that are playing absolutely fantastic, but really a flip in the culture of what Minnesota's going to have to do to win this game on the road. And I think the Denver Broncos are just playing with so much confidence right now. And if they can continue to kind of get those turnovers and force Dobbs into turnovers, this could be another springboard for the Broncos.
I think both teams are, and I think the key is if you do get Jefferson back to add with Addison and Osborne Osborne and Hawkinson, it really opens things up a lot more for Dobbs in this game.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to look at the Monday night game.
Before you go, Jefferson hasn't played in a live game with Dobbs, so obviously we talk about what he can mean when he
Jefferson,
comes, when he
just
comes
get him the
back.
ball.
Yeah, find a way to get him the ball. But don't be surprised if there's some miscommunication or these guys don't get off to a monster hard start and tell you, oh, Justin Jefferson's back. The Vikings are going to be fantastic. It might take some time for these guys to figure out a connection.
It really has turned out to be a really good game for Sunday Night Football now. So Monday night, not only is it the marquee game of this week, it might be the marquee game of the season so far. A rematch of the Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Chiefs. That Super Bowl was, 38-35? We've seen so many games, 63% of the games go under this year. There was no lack of scoring last February when these two teams met in the Super Bowl. They both have big-time offenses. You look at the Eagles coming off their bye, 8-1. I mean, the only team with one loss in the league. Chiefs, we know, have had some struggles, only have one loss at home this year. That one loss was opening night against the Detroit Lions. This one's going to be fun, Jay.
Yeah, you talk about coming off the bye. Obviously, the Eagles and Chiefs both coming off the bye here. Andy Reid has consistently had an incredible record when he comes off his bye. We know Travis Kelce spent some time in South America during the bye week, making some visits to the New Eras tour.
He swiftly had to hurry back, though, because of this big matchup.
But I think one of the keys in this number is this game opened a field goal and is now just under a field goal, almost a pick'em game, which is incredible for a Kansas City Chiefs team to be playing at home in a pick'em. And I think that just screams.
But it is against the Eagles.
Yeah, it screams to the two powerhouses that we're going to see, these two offenses. Really, the Eagles' offense has been kind of clicking on all cylinders, doing what they want to do. I can't say that the Chiefs have been Chief-like yet this year. If we look at both Patrick
They've been
Mahomes,
more defensive.
Yeah, and Kelsey's stats, statistically, they're not having their Kansas City Chief offensive season, but they are playing better defense than they've ever played, and it's just a matter of time before Mahomes and Kelsey and the rest of that club, and it's maybe not having the big game, but man, he just makes plays in the key moments. When they need a big play, when they need a third down, when they need a fourth down, Patrick Mahomes doesn't miss. And that's what makes it so scary to bet against him, because he just finds ways to win games. And when they're at home in this crowd, the Super Bowl rematch, this place is going to be Arrowhead's going to be absolutely crazy on Monday night.
You're right, though. It's funny that it's such a different Chief team right now. We're used to that high-powered offense and them scoring points and going up and down the field, and that hasn't been their MO. It's all about defense. And maybe we have to give a little credit to Eric Bieniemy. I know that a lot of the play calling went through Andy Reid, but you look at the success, not necessarily the wins, but the success of the offense of Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders with that young team around him. I think really Eric Bieniemy's done a great job there, but maybe he's being missed a little bit by Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it was shocking to see the stats last week during the Seattle game showing that Washington throws the football more than any team in all of football. And you wouldn't think that by looking at the Commanders and what they've done, but that's exactly where they're at. And again, Bieniemy's brought that to them, taken that away from the Chiefs. But I don't know what it means for this game. And obviously sitting in week 11, these teams have had their games, they've had their prep. The fact that both of these teams come into this game off their bye week with no advantage of one team off a bye or another team off a bye, and sitting where they're sitting, and the implications of what this has from a NFC, AFC bye week where we know only one team gets the bye. Just a monster game on Monday night.
Well, we've had
leading into the incredible week that next week is of Thanksgiving week. And we talk about the excitement of this Thursday night's football. We get next Thursday night.
And those games are up.
Those
games are up right now. Check out the app. All three of those games have been up now since early this week, so you can check out the Thanksgiving Day games as well. I think it's definitely intentional that these two teams both come off their bye and play. And we've had that AFC-NFC prop up, too, Super Bowl prop, regardless of who the representative is. And it's kind of ping-ponged a little bit from AFC the favorite when the Niners were hot, a 1.5 in the NFC. It's sitting at pick right now. A convincing Eagle win here might sway it back in favor of the Eagles. Just a couple of quick betting trends here, too. Philadelphia, 8-1 straight up in their last 9 games, 11-2 straight up in their last 13 games on the road. Kansas City, 11-1 straight up in their last 12 games at home. So a lot of trends that kind of favor both these two teams.
Yeah, and I talked about obviously Thanksgiving next week, and everybody's going to be out and about and hopefully enjoying the games. Get the app. Great time this weekend. Come in, sign up, get the app. Still have the 10% bonus up to $100 going on. So deposit $1,000, bet $1,000, you're going to get that $100 bonus. Get yourself set up this week so that you don't have to be traveling down to the book on Thanksgiving morning or Thanksgiving Day. With the games throughout the day, be able to bet on the app. And again, the props on the app are absolutely massive. College football, pro football. We haven't even discussed college basketball, NBA, NHL. There's so much going on. You talked about it 2 weeks ago. It's kind of that sports utopia. We just dropped baseball off, but now college basketball picks up. And so much going on every day.
Going on, so much stuff. Really quick, last man standing, too. There's 4 left in college, and I believe it's 11 or 12 left in the pros. So we've seen those numbers plummet as well. We'll make sure and get those selections out for the college so everyone knows who the last 4 are, you guys. But as Jay mentioned, great time to get the app. We know it's closer and closer to Turkey Day. Everyone's got those honey to-do lists. Great time because the sports book is in the palm of your hand. For Jason, I'm Chucky. For our guy John in the back, we're here at Red Rock Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. We'll see you guys next week.